A new art exhibit chronicles the places that make St. Louis a great place to live. That's next on City Corner. I'm Steve Potter, and welcome to City Corner. A new art exhibit is called the St. Louis Icon Series, and it really celebrates all the great places that we have here in St. Louis. And I'd like you to meet our guest right now. His name is Jim Irwin of the Clayton Fine Art Gallery. Hi, Jim. Welcome to the show.
Nice to be here, Steve. Thank you.
And when we're talking about art, as far as about what we're going to discuss today, we're talking about primarily paintings and photography.
That's correct. Paintings by John Soloso, who's a graphic artist in the St. Louis area, phenomenal artist. And then we have a couple photographers as well, and another painter with one admission at least here.
And what's interesting about it is the one thing all these things have in common, even the paintings are very realistic. So I don't know the technical way to put it. How do you describe art paintings that look like they are photographs?
It's interesting, when you first look at John's paintings, you think, well, there has to be a photograph. And why? Because it's so distinct, and the resolution, I mean, I'm a photographer personally, and it looks as good, if not better, than many camera images of the same subject. A lot of detail, a lot of effort. All of his paintings took at least 200 hours of effort to make. Extremely talented.
How long?
200 hours.
200 hours.
Yeah, I say he has 2 years in the making of these 9 paintings that are on display right now. 2 years.
It was Mr. Soloso, a friend of yours?
Well, he's a member of the gallery. He's what we call a resident artist, which means that he displays art in a certain size wall in the gallery on a regular basis, changing it up periodically.
Mm-hmm. And is this what he always does? Paints in this style?
He paints in high detail style, but they're not always icons. He also has other images of other items and people and subjects, but not all icons.
I don't know if you can speak for him or not, but how did he choose these particular 9 subjects?
I think it's his passion. He's trying to kind of, particularly Blueberry Hill and the Tivoli and the University City area, the Del Mar Loop area. I think that's his passion to sort of resurrect that area by using art. There's several other images that aren't necessarily that exact geographic area, but what he looks at is icons that people think of when they think of St. Louis.
And does he work from photographs? Or do you know?
I think most painters take a picture so they can remember some of the detail of that particular subject, and then, of course, the rest of the image is in their mind. And I'm sure the picture is only, if there is a picture, I've never asked him that, but I think most painters do have some kind of a picture they use just so they can get proportions right, but the painter has the freedom of changing if he wants to a little bit to accentuate certain features, whereas a photographer has to deal with what he's got.
Now, of course, we're going to see these images here in a second on the television screen, but what kind of scale does he work on? How big are these things in person?
Well, they're good size. The one on Courtesy Diner, I think, is 6 feet long. That's
6 feet?
5.5 or 6 feet long by, I want to guess, 36 inches high. Most of them are probably 28 by 36 or something that size. Good size picture, all on canvas, and one of them actually has a step-by-step little photographic line showing stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, stage 5 as he's going through the process.
Well, why don't we take a look? Now, he did 9
9 are on display right now at the gallery. It takes up a wall about 30 feet long, and we're showing those regularly right now. And this is kind of the feature of the art gallery for this 2-month period.
Well, why don't we begin and look at some of his work, and you can tell me. Now, this is something I remember from when I was a little kid, when we lived out of town and came to visit my grandparents. This is the one thing I looked forward to passing on the highway out to my grandmother's house.
Right. Yeah, this Amico sign, you look at this, and it's about this large, and you look at that image, and you swear, like I say, as a photographer, I'm looking at that, and I think, wow. Everything is set perfectly. I don't know if I can make my camera do that good a picture.
Right, now these are paintings. I just want to emphasize that.
These are paintings, yes, they are. But everybody thinks of, when they come into St. Louis over the years, when they come in, drive into St. Louis, they see that big Amico sign up there, and that's been an icon.
Let's go to the next one.
And of course, Blueberry Hill is always something that people reflect on, when particularly the younger set. Of course, you go in Blueberry Hill and you see pictures from way back, predating me, even if that's possible. So,
and the food's good too.
It is, yes. Always entertainment, and there's a lot of art in that place.
Yeah, that's of course Joe Edwards.
Joe Edwards' creation, yes.
Creation. Let's go to the next painting, which looks like a photograph, and this is?
Was that Courtesy Diner?
Yes.
Courtesy Diner. John's word is, it represents a feel-good place where young and old go before and after an event, having breakfast as a child, meeting your friends after a movie, or the final stop after the bars are closed, all become iconic memories in your life story.
Let's go to the next.
And the Moonrise is another one of his, it represents the revitalization of the Del Mar Loop. Calls it an amazing thing, a city being revitalized. And of course, he credits Joe Edwards as behind all this effort.
Right, they have a rooftop thing there that I have not been on, but I've heard a lot about.
It is phenomenal. I've been there a few times, yes.
Let's go to the next piece of work by John Soloso.
And I can't see the image.
That's the Pageant Theater.
The Pageant Theater, yes. And that's another, of course, becoming an icon in the Del Mar Loop area. And of course, I think almost everybody's been to the pageant for one type of music venue or another, or music episode or another.
They get some good acts there.
Yes, they do.
We'll move on. That's the Pinup Bowl.
The Pinup Bowl, yes. Not being a bowler, I'm not, not too much acquainted with that, but people are, and that's in the gallery right now. People walk by, oh my gosh, that's it right there, and they recognize this.
So you don't bowl?
No. I don't know.
You should check this place out, though.
I should check it out.
Let's move on to the next image we have. That's a familiar sight. Looks like Ted Drew's.
Ted Drew's. Everybody from out of town, oh, I heard about you have a place called Ted Drew's. Well, this is the fascination of the place is the ice cream, of course, but it seems to be more than that. But this picture shows the excitement of the crowd and the people that are pretty commonly seen outside Ted Drew's.
It is more than the concrete, Jim. I think it's a social thing, too, for people.
It's a social thing, you're right.
And they have some funny names. I have a friend who's, Johnny Rabbit, radio's Johnny Rabbit, Ron Ells. He's got a concrete named after him, as I think some other people there do, too.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't been there this season. I need to go. Let's move to the next image.
Well, the Tivoli's been around, and I think everybody's been to the Tivoli, and it's something you think of when you're driving to Del Mar Loop. Now, see, where's the Tivoli? You use that as kind of a landmark of where your directions are. It's 2 blocks east or west of the Tivoli. People commonly refer to it.
It's also the site of the St. Louis Filmmaker Showcase and the St. Louis International Film Festival.
That's right.
Among other things.
Among many things.
So
yes.
It's a really fun place to go. And let's keep going. This is the final painting.
Yes, and the Tropicana Bowl, it's the last one in the row in his display, and people right now have lined up to purchase this painting because it just brings back memories.
Really?
Of St. Louis. I had a couple come in the gallery last week from, I believe it was somewhere in Nevada. I can't remember the name of the city. Anyway, they said she grew up in St. Louis, and she saw that, and tears started coming down her eyes as she saw this painting. just brought back those memories.
Yeah, I would imagine on the St. Louis Icon series that when people come in, that they have interesting conversations that you maybe pick up on.
Yeah, yes, all ages actually. Of course, Blueberry Hill pulls for more of the younger set, but even the older set, the ones standing behind them being more quiet in the group in the galleries, viewing the pictures will be smiling and looking at it with the nostalgic expression.
Jim, how did this St. Louis Icon series come about as far as it being displayed in the Clayton Fine Arts Gallery? I know you said he was one of your resident artists. Was
yes.
That? But how did the idea for this start, and why did you think this was a good idea, something that you wanted to display?
Well, it touches people's hearts, and it's his passion, which I knew he always had. Every time he would change up his art every month in the gallery, which is kind of our custom, there'd always be some icon-type structure, and I kind of, not discussing it with him, but I did notice that early on, and it turns out that he had this whole collection of them, and that was his primary focus. So he decided to make it a display, and it's good for the gallery too. It's pulling in people that have never been to the gallery.
Well, now that you mentioned that, the Clayton Fine Art Gallery is in Clayton, obviously.
That's correct.
What's your exact location?
21 North Bemiston. Our landmark is across from the post office, and there's a little city hall there. But the younger set knows us being next door to Emo's.
Oh yeah, that's a good landmark. So most galleries have certain set hours and days. What's your schedule?
Well, we're open daily, Wednesday through Sunday, basically 11 till 6. Those are kind of common hours for an art gallery. Very few people want to go before 11. And Monday and Tuesday are kind of down times for galleries, so we're not open those days.
Okay. Well, when we come back from the break, you happen to be a photographer.
That's correct.
And in addition to the paintings we just saw, you have some photography on display, including yours and a couple of other people's, right?
That is correct.
So we're going to take this break and come back and take a look at those. We're talking about the Clayton Fine Art Gallery and St. Louis Icons. We'll be back with more City Corner after this.
G-morning, sunshine. Wakey, wakey. Text me. Are your parents home later? We can hang. LUV, love you. JK. Holla back. Holla back. Holla back. Are you with your friends? That's lame. We're in a huge fight right now. XO. What'd you dream about? Something I did. Are you on your way to the mall? I'm lonely. Nude pics. Send me some. Text me.
Experience St. Louis!
This financial advisor is being accused of committing one of the largest investment frauds in the history of the United States.
I guess we're not going to Aspen. That's fine. You see, I like tennis balls. He likes insider trading. So he's going to jail and I'm going to a shelter. And no, they're not the same thing. Shelters are for good pets that want to be adopted. Jails are for criminals. I did nothing. Uh-oh. Ooh, okay, I stole a cheeseburger once on my dog.
For those dealing with the struggles of caring for a loved one, we hear you. Visit aarp.org/caregiving for advice and support.
Over 13 million people are affected by famine, war, and drought in the Horn of Africa.
Make a simple text donation of $10.
But do more than donate. Forward the facts.
I'm Steve Potter. Welcome back to City Corner. We're talking with Jim Irwin of the Clayton Fine Art Gallery. They currently have an exhibit up now called St. Louis Icons, featuring the work of painter John Salozzo, and we looked at those incredible paintings that look, if you didn't know any better, you'd think they were photographs.
That's true. In fact, it seems like as I have evolved in the art world, I've noticed that a painter's greatest, particularly acrylic painter, is the greatest compliment is that's so real, it looks like a photograph. And yet, being a photographer, we would like to print things on canvas and other media that my compliment is that looks like a painting.
Right.
So it's just a switch.
Well, speaking of photography, real photography, you have some of that on display at the gallery too. And let's look at some here. We have an artist by the name of Greg Klumpers.
Greg Klumpers is a photographer in St. Louis. Very serious man with his photography. His primary topic, I think, is common sights in St. Louis, and we have a few, I think, to show.
Let's look at those right now. Greg Klumper.
The Anheuser-Busch Eagle, and as a photograph.
That's on the brewery building, I guess?
Yeah, I think it is, yeah. Yes. Yes. And it conjures up a lot of emotions in people.
Makes you think of the eagles along the Mississippi.
That's true.
Right? I guess that's the point of it.
I think so.
That's beautiful. Let's go to the next one.
And that's the Pagoda Island, the arch, or the
front of the Muni.
Front of the Muni in St. Louis Forest Park. And that's a common scene that people like, special technique photography.
Does he enhance his...
He enhances to create something artistic for the wall. Of course, this is a very common scene, the St. Louis art scene. I've been photographed a million times, I'm sure.
I never get tired of looking at it, though.
That's right.
Let's go to the next one.
And Stan Musial statue, that's for the Cardinal set in this country, Cardinal country.
Play ball.
Yes.
Union Station.
And Union Station, I mean, that's in a sense an icon, and this is a black and white technique that brings out the high contrast clouds and really shows the structures.
I remember back in the old days when photographers thought if you're a serious photographer, everything was in black and white.
Right. And
that was people thought that at one time.
Yes,
didn't they?
and I think that is very commonly looked at today.
Really?
Most quite commonly images, even though we have the best color pictures you can make with a camera, black and white seems to be coming back.
Let's look at the work of another photographer, Jerry Schmutz.
Jerry Schmutz is another serious photographer in the gallery, currently a co-owner with me in the gallery. And this is a reflection of the arch in the pool. That's people love that picture.
So that's reflecting out of the water?
Yes.
That's beautiful. Let's go to the next one.
And of course, the old Busch Stadium. That's brings a tear to eyes of many people, wishing it was back sometimes.
I had a picture taken there back in the 60s. I remember I was with a tour group as a kid, and I still have it, looking at the relatively new at that time Busch Stadium.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's go to the next one.
And that's a reflection of the courthouse on from another building, and just an interesting exposure concept.
Yeah, it makes me think of the one he did of the arch that's reflected in the water, only this is reflecting off a building.
Yes, correct.
I like the technique.
Yeah. And the gargoyle, can't pronounce that properly, in the fountain. Interesting little character there.
Okay, I think that's all of his, oh no, pavilion, yeah.
And the
Tower
pavilion,
Grove Park.
yes, in Tower Grove Park. Looks like in the winter as well. So.
You're a photographer yourself, so
that's correct.
Are you really nitpicky when you see other photographers' work?
I try to be a little selective at who we let display in the gallery as to the photography techniques and skills, and I'm very open as far as the subject matter, as long as it's presentable for families.
Well, we're going to look at some of your work here in just a second. Before we do that, we have one example. Now, this is back to the painting, and this is Juliet Travo?
Travo, yes, and she lives in St. Charles area, and Tony's on Main. For people from the St. Charles area, this is something people commonly think of when they think of hometown St. Charles area. So
that'd be the St. Charles icon, I guess.
I guess it would be, yes.
It's very sort of impressionistic?
It is, yeah. And it looks really nice in the live picture of it. So.
Okay, Jim, I want to talk about you.
All right.
You're a photographer, but you also have a background as a veterinarian.
That's correct.
And somehow those two things tie together, don't they?
Well, I've always felt like animals create some special feeling inside people, and I think the human being has this longing for a connection with animals. So showing the animals close up and personal sometimes, or even relaying their environment is my passion. So.
Do you have any favorite subject matters in particular? Or?
Well, we have a few. I don't know if you have time to show them
yes,
or not. But
let's look at some of your work.
This is the elephants on the Chobe River at sunset.
On the what river?
The Chobe River in Botswana, Africa.
Wow. And
it's a huge river, and the sunset was just right, and we're headed back to our camp, and I screamed at the Jeep driver to stop so I can get that picture real quickly, and that's won some contests. It's been well received.
It looks like something you see in National Geographic, and that's a compliment.
It is. In fact, National Geographic gave me the #1 prize for that one in a contest a couple years ago.
Really?
Yes. In the wild contest that was shown in Vermont.
You know, I've had a subscription to National Geographic since the 60s, and the reason I've kept it my entire life is for the photographs. It's beautiful. I look forward to that.
Hardcore photography.
Let's go to the next one of your work.
And this is in Amboseli, Kenya, and in the Mount Kilimanjaro in the background with a little bit of ice on the top yet, and elephants in the foreground.
It's beautiful. So stark.
And black and white, again, just giving you a little.
Do you prefer
feel.
black and white yourself?
About 50-50. If the subject doesn't have a lot of interesting color features, the structure and the contrast mean more than to stick with black and white.
Let's go to the next one.
And this is a sunset in Samburu, Kenya, and with a large telephoto lens to make the sun big, and there's a giraffe still grazing on the acacia tree at that time of evening.
Beautiful.
This is my icon, the 5 zebra girls in this Lake Manyara area of Tanzania. And this is I could talk for an hour about this picture. It's on my business card, and it's one that people look at and say, oh, I know that guy.
I want to talk about this one.
Okay.
Because there's got to be a story behind this. I mean,
yes.
You know, you don't pose wild animals.
No, in everybody's pictures of zebras, the zebras are looking the other direction, or one's looking at you and one's looking the other direction.
So how'd you get this?
Partly luck. But I was getting out of the Jeep, just had a 4-hour Jeep drive from Arusha Airport. We're getting into our campsite, and I'm lugging my gear to my tent, and these zebras were about 60 yards away, and they were kind of looking at me carrying that big red bag, and that probably caught their attention. So I immediately dropped the bag to the ground and put out my tripod and got going there and took these pictures, and that I have never had one that has received so much fanfare, the 5 zebra girls. So. That's my image. So.
You know, I've interviewed a lot of photographers over the years, and I always think it's interesting, like what their approach is and how much they play with the image. Because now with Photoshop and I don't know all the technical stuff, but you can do so much. And do you think you can do too much though?
Well, you can always overdo it. I see people present art to the gallery that's oversaturated to the point where it doesn't even look real. If you're going to use Photoshop, and there's 1,001 other different computer programs you can modify things, you want to do it to improve the image, to make it more aesthetically pleasing to the wall. You want to have something you put on the wall and look at, and it means something to you, and not overdone. I think there's a reason for it. I mean, even simple cameras, point-and-shoot cameras, have settings in there that it automatically does. So it's not like everything is a raw picture out of a camera, but I think we have to adjust them some to make them more pleasing.
Not that I'll understand the answer to this, but what do you shoot with?
I use all digital, and I'm a Canon person. Nothing against Nikon, there's other digitals too, but once you start with one brand, the lenses aren't interchangeable to other brands, so I've created a huge inventory of Canon cameras and lenses that match them for the different needs.
Do you find that photographers, when they find a camera they like, use one camera, or do they switch around?
Well, when you're out in Africa particularly, you can't change lenses easily without all the dust getting inside your camera. So I'll carry 2 or 3 cameras around my neck, with one with a long lens, one with a medium lens, one with a short lens, depending on what the subjects around me are doing, and I'm constantly jumping up in the Jeep and looking left, looking right, and but you don't have time to change lenses, and it would get dust in there, so it kind of depends on your subject matter. Most of my pictures of animals they're further away, so I got a pretty long lens on there. And,
yeah, I guess when you're dealing with wild animals too, you can't get too close, maybe either for safety reasons or you're going to spook them, right?
You're going to spook them, and you don't want to do that because then they're going to run, and then you got to wait an hour or so till they get brave enough to come back out in the clearing. But you want to be, I quote, nearly invisible, which is not really true, but you don't want to be disturbing to them, and they want to be relaxed. You want them to be relaxed.
And, you know, we just looked at 4 of your photographs, Jim. But I'm wondering, like, how many shots did you take to get those 4?
I come back from 2 weeks in safari, and I have 35 to 36,000 images.
Wait a minute. How many?
Yes, 36,000 images on my memory cards.
Wow.
And that's a lot of memory cards.
Yeah.
And then it takes me about 2 months to go through them and can cull them. Of course, you immediately cull out 90-some%. At an airport once, I saw a National Geographic guy, and we're chatting, and I said, how many do you take a week? He said, about 15,000, 18,000 a week. So I guess I'm right in the ballpark there. Yeah. And I asked him, how many of those do you ever use in one of your shows? It's maybe 4, maybe 3.
Wow.
It takes that many to get a good one.
What makes a good photographer, do you think, Jim, in your opinion?
think patience, knowledge, because you got to be able to sit there and wait. It's kind of like fishing. And knowledge of the cameras and the lenses and the lighting. It's just not pick the camera, point, shoot, take the picture, and print it. You got a winner. No, that rarely happens. You have to do a lot of adjustments, but you got to do them pre-camera, settings and looking and thinking and lighting and all that.
Well, the earlier St. Louis Icon shots that we saw at the beginning of the program, they're up through October the 11th.
That's correct.
And you say you kind of change things up every month or so?
Yes, about every 30 days, the artists come in and take down and put up, not necessarily everything, but as many as they can change out each month. And so we try to keep it interesting for the public so that when they come in there, it's not always the same stuff.
Well, what have you got planned for the future then? And I might just say we're looking at some of these St. Louis icons again.
Yeah, we've got a fiber artist in the group named Judith Olson, and she is working on a big special program coming up later this fall. More on that eventually. It's not all ready to talk about yet. And of course we have some jewelers, and we have a ceramist and an enamel artist, and it just keeps on going. So one by one we select one to be a featured artist and put on their own show, their special show.
So do you miss treating animals? Are you good in the photography thing totally now?
Well, I'm in my 60s, and I'm slowly winding down. I still work 2 days a week as a practicing veterinarian, small animal practice, but that's winding down. So I still do some of that.
So are you going to be back to Africa soon?
Yes, we're planning another trip sometime in the next year. It takes a lot of foreplanning and visas and all that.
It's the Clayton Fine Art Gallery in Clayton, and we've been talking to Jim Irwin, and we thank you so much for being here, and we hope people go by and see the St. Louis Icon series and everything else, and go back every month, I guess, is a good thing.
Yes, and come the 19th, Friday night, 6 to 9, have a glass of wine and some light snacks, and hopefully some background music, and be able to look around the gallery and meet all the artists and see the pictures.
Thanks, Jim Irwin. Thanks so much for being here. Beautiful work.
Thank you, Steve, for having me.
And that's all the time we have for this edition of City Corner. I'm Steve Potter. Thanks for watching. Join us next time. Bye.